the ecological crisis that we face on a planetary scale, particularly related to global warming, where capitalism has emitted so much of carbons into the atmosphere and the biosphere that it has now changed and is changing planetary patterns, climate patterns. The planet is heating up, okay? The scientists are telling us that we could eventually cook ourselves. There could be runaway global warming, okay? We need serious intervention. Now, for poor people and for working class people, the impact of climate change is going to be disproportionate. It's going to be more for them than for the rich. And how is this going to impact on particularly working class and poor people? It's going to impact on them in terms of food. This is a very fundamental issue. Now, if you look at Africa, including ourselves, by the way, okay, we're largely agrarian. And if global warming really is pushed to its limits, it seems like we're lurching in that direction, most people won't be able to farm and feed themselves in Africa. Okay? We can't ignore this. And all the science is telling us that climate change is going to be worse in Africa if we do not have decisive intervention. Another example is the whole issue of extreme weather patterns. Okay? When floods come and they rage through, say, parts of East Asia, Pakistan and other countries, who gets hit the worst? Who lives next to rivers and so on? It's the poor. Okay? If you think about the issue of refugees, now we talk about people coming here because Zimbabwe has problems and so on. But we're going to have people coming into our country and other countries all over the world because in their countries they can't sustain themselves. Some countries are going to disappear. Some countries that are islands, they're going to disappear because the sea levels are going to rise. What happens to those people? Okay? Now, the issue of intervention is an important one. It's an important one so that we can intervene in a politics that's not left to elites at the top to determine how we solve this problem. Now, right now, there's a global conversation going on through the United Nations to try and address the climate change question. And basically, that whole process, comrades, is not producing A, an understanding that goes to the roots of the problem, and B, it's not producing fundamental solutions. Okay? Essentially, the capitalist world wants to take the easy way. Because you see, at the heart of the climate change challenge is whether capitalism has a future or not. At the heart of this is whether we restructure production and consumption and how we live. Do we have societies based on growth or not? Are we entering a transition beyond capitalist accumulation? This is the central issue of our time. It's a planetary question. Do we go the path of ecological suicide as a civilization and as a planet? Or do we fundamentally restructure how the world works? And does that mean do we go beyond capitalism? Okay. Now, I've just spoken to one element of the bigger ecological crisis. There are other elements to the ecological crisis that we face. Capitalism uses resources. It is energy intensive. It is raw material intensive. Now, what we've learned as we've deepened our ecological consciousness is all resources on planet Earth are limited. So whether it's fuel, whether it's trees, whatever it is all limited. Science and substitutes can only come in to a certain extent, but even that requires inputs. So we are facing, again, another very serious limit vis-a-vis capitalism and the ecological crisis. The other issue about it is that capitalism produces waste of all sorts. It produces waste in the form of pollution in rivers, in oceans, and so on. Do you know the acidic levels of our ocean are becoming so bad that we may find ourselves at a time where we may not have seafood anymore. We will kill off all aquaculture and life in our seas.
Yes.
Now, you might say, well, I'm a socialist, I'm going to have a revolution and so on. But if the material basis for us to survive is gone, you're going to do nothing with it. The eco-socialism question is a very, very serious issue. Now, in the Marxist tradition, after Marx, none of the second generation Marxists had an ecological understanding. Lenin, Trotsky, Rosa Luxemburg, all of them, they never had an ecological understanding. So their socialism was bereft of an understanding of the ecological crisis we face as a planet. So, for those of us who want to take eco-socialism seriously, and if we are Marxists, and I might be a Marxist, I don't know what other people. One source is Marx. And Marx, if you read Marx carefully, he has a very, very serious understanding of the limits of capitalism and accumulation vis-a-vis nature. Okay? So that's one ideological place you can start. But there are others as well, outside of the Marxist tradition, who have a critique of capitalism. Radical ecologists, they have a serious critique of capitalism because they view capitalism as a system that's just destroying nature. Okay? And there's a bit of a limit to their position. Okay? They look at the world through the lens of nature, not through the lens of human beings, which is mainly how Marxists have generally looked at the world. Okay? But they are important in terms of building an ecological politics because they converge with Marxists. They are against capitalism. Okay? So we have to think about how we work with those people. Okay? Now, eco-socialism is in the making. It's not in the making in South Africa. It's new in South Africa. It's a new question. Eco-socialism is not on the banner of any left force in this country today. Okay? In the world, it's emerging through grassroots movements. Via Campesina, the movement of peasants in the world are talking about food sovereignty, and they're using the food question, making sure that food is not compromised by capitalist agriculture and its ecologically damaging methods of production. They are reclaiming food production from below for themselves. Now, they have been talking about it. People in Europe today on the left are talking about a post-growth society. They are coming at it from an eco-socialist perspective. Now imagine a world without growth. That means the juggernaut of capitalism, which just chases profits and commodities and profits and commodities, that has to come to a standstill. We have to think a different way of doing things.